Oh, I think you're on mute again, Simon.
The characteristics of good academic writing, specifically in the field of scholarship project, investigating the characteristics of good academic writing, specifically in the field of digital media studies. Now, I'm going to try and keep this within the kind of 5 minutes or so that I was allotted. So I've just put in a photo of the edited book, what is good academic writing. And there's a chapter which explains this project in more detail because I'll have to whisk through it. So we know that genre is important, and as EA practitioners, we know that it's particularly important for us to understand the expectations of a genre and to be able to share the insights that we have with students themselves as they and socialize within the academic literacies of their own discipline. So really thinking of EAP practitioners as investigators, constantly trying to better understand different disciplinary contexts. A project was born out of this in terms of trying to establish the characteristics of good academic writing that members of the school and by virtue of that the wider community would be looking for in a number of written academic genres within specifically digital media studies. And I chose this because it's a relatively new field. It does, it's not really just a straight soft social science because it also includes, as I'll talk about, the production of media artifacts. It also includes elements of policy, and it has very close ties with media industries and is influenced by that connection. So the research I undertook then was to work with 5 disciplinary lecturers and with them to explore together examples of distinction level student work. Also discussing the tasks which have been set and how they were representative of the field as it was understood by the academics, to look at criteria, to look at the comments and feedback, and through this process then to unpack the feedback, unpack the assumptions which the tutors had about the work that they were expecting to see. And as you can see on the slide here, this is a table from the book chapter, which shows the different genres of written work that students had to produce. And there's quite a range there, including personal reflections, discursive essays, research projects as well. And here then there is just a simple breakdown of some of the qualities which kind of came out from the research that the academics were interested in students displaying. And just as a very quick overview for you to see how then this field distinguishes itself, we have certain genres which are heavily influenced by more academic conventions and policy reports, website evaluation reports, etc. And also those that are produced by the conventions of the industries. Unfortunately, I can see now, I think these are these are in the wrong columns, but so we've got the academic conventions, which are more research proposals, reflections, etc. And then we've got the effect of the of industry, where there are reports, there are evaluation reports which follow very fixed formats, which are determined by the wider industry. So this had strong pedagogic implications because one of the immediate things we can see is that students are actually called upon to produce very different written academic genres. And they need to be aware of this. And also they need to understand the relationship between the genres and the purpose. And this is why the breakdown and understanding the whys and the influences within the field of industry, of the academic conventions, the reflective tasks, which are focusing on the group work, because the expectation is that students will primarily be working in groups in the following graduation. And then there are characteristics as a breakdown for each genre, and of course that can provide a useful reference list for the course design. Okay. One of the things that came out of this, which professionally I found very useful, was like thinking about how bound these genres were. So the reports, the media, the industry related reports, website evaluations, for example, are very, very fixed in the way that they need to look and to be organized, to be structured in the content, because they need to follow those kind of conventions. Whereas the reflections, for example, would be less bound, and there's much greater freedom for interpretation and for students to produce them in ways which they felt would work best for them. And so again, we can share with students a spectrum. We can guide them on help them to kind of understand this flexibility and where it arises from. So the challenges here were really initially contacting lecturers. It's asking for them to share quite a lot of documentation, to share time, to pull out distinction level work, to dedicate quite a bit of time to go through individual pieces of work, to break them down, and to share their assumptions about student work, and perhaps to tease out in that in the interviews, like some of the broader themes. However, I found it to be an incredibly useful exercise. It did feel very much that it was that there was an exchange of expertise and knowledge. Clearly, I was learning a lot about the academic discipline, but I found that there were conversations we could have which would enable the disciplinary lecturers themselves to unpack what they'd done quite naturally, to articulate it, to make their ideas far more explicit. One of the outcomes was that I think the lecturers had a much deeper appreciation for the complexity of what they're asking students to do, and the kind of and that students needed to not only be aware of these different genres, but they actually needed from the outset to be fully briefed on what what was entailed. So the lecturers themselves began to think much more deeply, I think, about the preparation, about dedicating time within the syllabus for explaining these assumptions. And so, in a way, there's much greater collaboration in terms of thinking about academic literacy, and a more shared responsibility for helping students to arrive at these understandings. And lecturers mentioned, for example, that they then saw this knowledge as an essential part of their discipline. So rather than just the content, but the way in which knowledge is demonstrated and which is presented. And because of this the cooperation required and the kind of conversations that we had, I think it enabled the colleagues to understand better the work that I was doing and the kind of expertise the EAP practitioners also bring, and thereby to provide the foundation for future collaboration. He opened lots of doorways. And since then, there have been a number of invitations to be more involved in embedded sessions and to be looking at the ways in which these varied tasks are being presented. I hope that was reasonably time bound and haven't overstretched.